What's up everyone, my name is Gary Blackwood, also known as GazzyB123, and welcome to the YouTube version of the GazzyB Instagram quiz. Those that follow me on Instagram will be familiar with the rules already. For those that don't, 1, go ahead and do that now at GazzyB123, and 2, the rules of the quiz are very simple. All you've got to do is guess what you think my opponent has in all of the 5 hands that I am about to show to you. That's it, all you've got to do is guess what you think my opponent has in all 5 hands. If that wasn't easy enough for you, all of the questions are multiple choice, so you'll get a list of choices to choose from, and all you've got to do is choose A, B, C, or D for every hand that you see. It could not be easier. I'll be giving away $200 to one lucky person who gets all the answers right. In the unlikely event of a tie, we'll do a draw and one winner will take away $200. I'm not sweating this at all though, because nobody's going to get all 5 right. So without further ado, let's get into the quiz. Right, 7-4 of spades. This is a bomb pot on ACR. We are playing 1k NL, that's 5-10 blinds. For those that aren't familiar with what a bomb pot is, everyone is forced to ante up 5 big blinds before the start of the hand. So there's $250 in the middle. We're 5-handed right now, and we get a pretty good flop. We flop the absolute nuts. It checks round to the cutoff, and the cutoff bets $80. I'm not going to talk too much strategy in these videos, but I'm sure some will seep out from time to time. Raising here is obviously fine. I decided to call a lot of the time, and the reason I decided to mainly call was because if somebody is behind with a hand like 3-4 suited, they might just spaz out and shove or raise with their pair plus straight draw, and if we raise, nobody is going to do that then, because it's obvious we've got a strong hand. But if we call, we might be perceived as being a bit capped, because we're going to call here with hands like, you know, like king 5 offsuit and stuff like that. So if it goes bet, we call, and we've got king 5, they can shove with their 3-4, their bottom pair and straight draw. They're very inclined to do so because we're forced to fold a hand like that. So I decided to just flat and see if we could induce a raise from somebody else. Unfortunately for us, everybody folds. A very clean turn, no straights, no flushes complete. We've still got the nuts. My opponent checks. I decided to bet 1/3 here. I'll be honest, I'm really not sure what the optimal strategy is in bomb pots. I haven't studied them, and I don't even know how to study them. I decided to bet 1/3 here. Yeah, really wasn't sure what the optimal size was. I mean, we can still shove the river, so I think the size is fine. My opponent does the shoving for us, and we absolutely snap him off, of course, with the nuts. And I'll show you the run out. I won't show you his hand, obviously, because y'all are supposed to guess that. So we have the nuts. My opponent has A, ace-6 offsuit. That's ace-6 offsuit. B, pocket 4s. C, pocket 5s. Or D, ace-5 of clubs. Make a note. We'll move to the next hand. Alright, on to the next hand. We've got ace-king off in the small blind. MP has opened. This is not under the gun. He is middle position because we're 5-handed. Cutoff folds, button folds. I put in the 3-bet with the ace-king off in the small blind to $90. The big blind gets out of the way, and the middle position player puts in the 4-bet to $205. I think shoving here is fine. I think just calling is fine as well. I think if we've got good pre-flop charts, they'll do a little bit of both. I decided to just call this time, and we go heads up to a not brilliant jack 7-6 with 2 diamonds. I of course check it on over to my opponent, and he bets a quarter pot. I decided to call for a couple of different reasons. First things first, when your opponent uses really small bet sizes, your continuing range is wider. You get to float a little wider. So if my opponent went half pot here, I'd probably start to fold this combo. But given he's gone really small, our continuing range is wider. And we get to call wider as a result. Second reason, whilst we don't have a diamond in our hand, we do have a backdoor straight draw, we do have 2 overcards. And lastly, and most importantly, we can have the best hand here sometimes. My opponent is supposed to 4-bet bluff with some hands here that we're way ahead of. So I think this is a pretty easy call. And we get a relatively nice ace of diamonds turn. Obviously the flush comes in, but we've made top pair, top kicker in a 4-bet pot, so that's never a terrible thing. I check, and my opponent bets 10% pots. I expect him to bet small here. I don't use 10% pot bet sizes myself. I'm not saying that this is bad or a mistake. It's just not in my arsenal personally. So yeah, my opponent bets 10%. I actually solved this hand, and we are supposed to shove this combo sometimes, although in game that didn't even cross my mind. But shoving here is certainly an option. I make the call, and we get the brick of all bricks. The deuce of hearts on the river changes nothing. My opponent, I don't think, has ace deuce suited, so it doesn't really change anything. I don't think he's got pocket deuces. So yeah, complete brick on the river. I check, and my opponent goes all in. I'm not about that folding top pair, top kicker in a 4-bet pot life. So I make the call. Now, the question is, what does my opponent have? Does he have A, pocket queens with the queen of diamonds? Does he have B, king 10 of diamonds for the nut flush? Does he have C, pocket aces for top set? Or does he have D, king 9 of clubs for the complete airball? Make a note, next hand. Okay, on to the next hand, and as you can see, we've got a beautiful looking pair of aces in the big blind. Action starts in the cutoff, he makes it $22.50. The small blind puts in the 3-bet to $100, and we stick in a wonderful cold 4-bet to $230. Cutoff folds, small blind makes the call, and we go heads up to a very interesting looking 6-5-4 with 2 clubs. It's not a great flop for our range, we don't have too many hands that connect with this board. However, for our hand, we don't really care, we're more than happy to get pocket aces in on this flop. My opponent's got a lot of 1-pair hands, a lot of draws, all that great stuff. My opponent lead jams for $770. I, of course, snap call, and we are off to the dealer. The turn is the 10 of clubs. The river is the 4 of spades. What does my opponent have? Does he have A, 7-6 of spades? Does he have B, 6-5 of diamonds? Does he have C, ace queen of clubs? Or does he have D, pocket sevens? Pretty interesting on this one. I'll be curious to see the results. Make a note. On to the next one. Okay, on to hand number 4. We're playing 600 NL again on ACR. We've got a very pretty jack 10 of diamonds on the button. We open to 2.5x. My opponent 3-bets out the big blind to $70. I'm never folding this hand. I'm never 4-betting this hand. I'm always calling. It's a very pretty hand that can flop very well. Flop comes down queen 8-6, 2 hearts, 1 diamond. My opponent puts out a continuation bet, relatively small. He goes 1/3 or slightly less than 1/3. I'm not raising this hand. I'm not folding this hand. Very pretty hand for us to just call and see if we can find like the 9 of clubs or something like that on the turn. We don't find the 9 of clubs, but we pick up a lot of outs. It is the 3 of diamonds, 2 flush draws out there now. We've got a gut shot. We've got the jack high diamond draw. My opponent bets. I think this size is good for my opponent. I didn't sim this hand, but I don't think we want to shove here. My thought process in game was that if we do want to have a shoving range here with some of our draws, we tend to favor hands like ace 10 of diamonds, ace jack of diamonds, those sort of nut flush draws that can dominate our opponent's flush draws essentially. We don't want to shove here and have our opponent call with like ace king of diamonds. That's a bit of a disaster. So I think we want to have the nut flush draw in our shoving range if we want to have a shoving range here at all. So I call, try and realize my equity. We do not get there. However, we get a very bluffable queen of clubs if my opponent decides to check to me, and that's exactly what happens. I'm never checking this back. This is a mandatory jam. Even if he's got us beat and he's not going to fold and he's a big calling station, I'm not checking down jack high here. This is a pretty mandatory jam in my opinion. I go ahead and shove for about 90% pots. My opponent calls. My question to you is, what does my opponent have? Does he have black kings, so king of clubs, king of spades? Does he have ace queen offsuit for 3 of a kind? Does he have ace king for just ace high? Or does he have 6-5 of hearts for 3rd pair, putting me on the misdraw? What do you think? Make a note. We'll see you on the last one. On to our final hand of the quiz. Some of us have 4 out of 4 right now, so let's dig deep. Let's really focus and see if we can get over the line and get ourselves 5 out of 5. So this is a pretty interesting hand. We've got 5-4 of clubs in the big blind. We're playing 500 Zoom on PokerStars. And I know I said at the beginning of this video I didn't want this to be educational content, but I'm going to throw some solver stuff at you, and y'all are going to learn whether you like it or not. Don't be disheartened if you've never used a solver. I'll explain exactly what we're looking at and talk about why it's important. But yeah, it's just a very quick side note when we come to it. So the cutoff opens here. He opens to 2.2x. It folds right to me in the big blind. I make it $55. I've got 5-4 suited. We want to call this hand sometimes. We want to 3-bet it sometimes. Both options are fine. I decided to 3-bet it this time, as we can see. My opponent makes the call, and the flop comes down ace 9-4 with 2 spades. Now, this is obviously a flop that we can do a lot of betting on if we want to. We can play some checks, and if we are going to play some checks, this is a hand that plays quite nicely as a check call. So I do check, and my opponent stabs here. He stabs for 50% pots, and this is where things get a little interesting. I was curious about this sizing from my opponent because it doesn't fall into my own sizing scheme, if you like, and I want to quickly talk about this. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. So when we're checked to in position in 3-bet pots, we generally favor a smaller bet size of 1/3 in a lot of scenarios. For example, if the board's like, 9-5 deuce, because we want to bet hands like 10-9 suited, Jack-9 suited, pocket 10s, even pocket 8s, even a hand like 5-4 suited, even a hand like pocket 3s, pocket 4s wants to do a lot of betting. All those hands want to bet because there's value to be had and they need a decent amount of protection. But on a board like Ace-9-4, we're really not merged with our betting range. We're really quite polarized. We choose hands like, we're not betting pocket queens or pocket jacks. We're not betting 9-8 suited. We're not betting a lot of our weaker top pairs. So I'm of the opinion that we should be using a more polarizing size to reflect the fact that we're not stabbing very often here. So what I've done is I've run 2 sims with 2 different stab sizes for my opponent. I have given the solver 50%. And I've given the solver 75%. So if we look at the 50% one, this is going to be super quick, as I say, guys. The EV of using a 50% bet size is 1287.3. And what that essentially means is the pot is 2250. If we use this strategy, this is how much of the pot we can expect to win with a 50% stab size. However, if we use a 75% stab size, as we can see, the EV is 1302.2, so it's a higher EV option to use a 75% stab size when you want to stab here. I wanted to share that with you guys because I had run the sims. So that's the end of that side note. So essentially on the ace high boards, when we're stabbing in position, we tend to favor a more polarizing bet size. Coming back to the hand itself, my opponent uses half pot as mentioned. I don't think we want to raise this. I think we want to just go ahead and call. We get a glorious 4 of diamonds, the nicest turn card I've seen all day. I check to my opponent and he continues to bet. For what it's worth, if he's using half pot on the flop, I would probably use half pot on the turn. I think that's fine to use a sort of geometric sizing scheme in this instance. I go ahead and make the call. The river is the brick of all bricks, the deuce of clubs. I check. My opponent goes all in. I absolutely snap call. Of course, never ever folding. My question to you for the 5th and final time is, what does my opponent have? Does he have A, 6-5 of hearts for a pretty sexy bluff? Does he have B, pocket deuces with a spade for a pretty sexy bluff that's just gotten there? Does he have 3 ace-king for what would be a completely reasonable line? Or does he have 4 ace-9 suited for what would obviously be a completely reasonable line as well? Get your answers in the comments below. And that brings us to the end of our very first GaziB Instagram to YouTube crossover quiz. I really hope you guys have enjoyed it. Get your answers in the comments, A, B, C, D for question 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If anyone is lucky enough to win, I will announce it in the next quiz that we're going to do next week. However, like I say, I'm not concerned. Nobody ever wins these things, so I'm not out $200. It's all good on my part. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'll see you next time.